All right, folks, welcome back to the Joe Rogan experience. Today, oh man, today is going to be wild. We've got Dr. Jordan Peterson here. You know him, you love him, or maybe you argue with him on Twitter, but either way, he's a brilliant mind. And we're diving into a topic that honestly, most people are terrified to talk about: Islam versus Christianity. And when I say that, I don't mean like we're putting these two in a cage fight at UFC 400, although that would sell pay-per-view, right? No, what I mean is let's actually understand these two massive religions that shape billions of lives every single day. Because, dude, people don't think about this stuff anymore. They just throw memes around, or they watch a TikTok clip of someone yelling about religion, and then they think they know what's going on. But here's the truth. These two religions, Islam and Christianity, they're like the operating systems of civilization. They've been running in the background for centuries. So if you don't understand them, you don't understand why the world is the way it is. So today, Jordan and we're going deep. This is going to get philosophical, psychological, maybe even a little psychedelic. So buckle up. Jordan Peterson, thank you, Joe. And yes, this is a necessary conversation because these aren't trivial matters. These traditions constitute the foundation of human culture in large swaths of the world. They define how people view morality, meaning, and even the nature of reality itself. Joe Rogan. Exactly. And here's the thing. I didn't grow up super religious. I mean, my parents weren't dragging me to church every Sunday. And now I'm like that curious ape who wants to poke everything with a stick and see what happens. So when I look at religion, I'm fascinated. I've talked to atheists, I've talked to Christians, I've even had Muslim guests on the podcast, and every time I realize how little we really know about what people actually believe. Joe, so first question, Jordan, why even compare these two? Why not just say, hey, believe what you want, bro, and move on? Jordan, because these two religions aren't just private preferences, they're civilizational pillars. Christianity shaped Western culture, our legal systems, our notions of individual rights, even science, and Islam shaped the Middle East, North Africa, parts of Asia. If you don't understand them, you can't understand why the world operates the way it does. They've both informed art, literature, ethics, everything. Joe, yeah, so what you're saying is, these ideas are like software running in the background. Even if you're an atheist in New York drinking oat milk lattes, you're still using a moral framework that came from these religions. Jordan, precisely. And if you don't know what the framework is, you can't evaluate it. That leaves you vulnerable to ideological possession by newer, often more dangerous substitutes. Christianity, Jesus, Son of God, died on a cross, rose again. Islam, Muhammad is the prophet, Quran is the word of God. That's what most people know. But what's the real difference at the core? Jordan, at the heart of Christianity is the incarnation, the idea that God became man in the person of Jesus Christ. That's a radical concept, because it means the divine experienced human suffering. And Christians believe you should imitate Christ, pick up your cross and confront suffering voluntarily. Islam, on the other hand, emphasizes submission to God. In fact, Islam literally means submission. It's about recognizing your limitations as a human being and aligning yourself with divine order through obedience to God's law. There's a profound humility in that. Joe, so one's like God came down and lived among us, and the other's like, hey man, remember who's in charge. Jordan, that's a rather blunt summary, but yes, in essence. Joe, I like blunt. It's what my brain can handle. Both laugh. Section 3. Different stories, different missions. Joe, so Christianity's story starts with Jesus. But what about Islam? Where does Muhammad fit into all this? Jordan, in Islamic theology, Muhammad is the final prophet. Muslims believe there were many prophets before him. Adam, Noah, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, all of whom delivered God's message, but those messages were either distorted or incomplete. The Quran revealed to Muhammad is considered the final perfect message, so Islam doesn't see itself as something new, it sees itself as a restoration. Joe, that's interesting, because people think Islam and Christianity are like two rival gangs, but you're saying Islam actually sees itself as like an update, the 2.0 version. Jordan, in a sense, yes, though Christians of course don't see it that way. Joe, right, so now we have competing claims. Christianity says Jesus is God incarnate. Islam says Jesus was a prophet but not God. and Muhammad is the final messenger. So that's a big theological split. Section 4, the role of law and structure. Joe, now here's something I've noticed. Christianity, at least modern Christianity, feels kind of like go to church on Sunday, maybe read the Bible, but you can still eat bacon cheeseburgers and drink beer. Islam seems way more structured. 5 prayers a day, fasting in Ramadan. No pork, no alcohol. Why's that? Jordan, well, part of it is historical development. Christianity separated itself from Jewish law early on, largely because of Paul's writings. He argued that faith in Christ superseded the ritualistic aspects of the Mosaic law. Islam, by contrast, retained a strong legal tradition, Sharia, which governs not only personal morality but also aspects of social and legal life. Joe, so Islam is like, here's the rule book, and Christianity is like, here's the ideal, figure it out. Jordan, Christianity focuses on internal transformation, love your neighbor, imitate Christ, whereas Islam integrates faith and law more tightly. Both systems aim at moral order, but they approach it differently. Section 5, misconceptions and media narratives. Joe, alright, let's talk about the elephant in the room. In the West, people hear Islam and immediately think terrorism, or they think of women being oppressed. Are these fair criticisms, or is it more complicated? Jordan, it's far more complicated. Every large-scale tradition can be corrupted. You can point to the Crusades for Christianity, or violent extremism in Islam, but those are distortions, not the essence of the faith. Islam's intellectual tradition was extraordinarily sophisticated. It produced philosophy, science, art, and many Islamic societies historically offered more stability and education than their European counterparts. Joe, yeah, and I think social media makes it worse. People only see the extreme. Like if you only judged Christianity by those snake-handling preachers on YouTube, you'd think Christians are insane. Both laugh. Jordan, precisely. Reduction to caricature breeds misunderstanding and hostility. Section 6, faith in a scientific age. Joe, okay, here's the question I get all the time. How can you believe in religion when we have science? People act like science and religion are in a UFC fight too. Jordan, that's a false dichotomy. Science describes the structure of the objective world. Religion deals with the domain of value, the question of what's meaningful, and how you should act. Those are different categories. If you conflate them, you end up with either fundamentalism or nihilism. Joe, yeah, and if you've ever done enough DMT, you realize there's way more going on than atoms smashing into each other. All right, folks, welcome back. If you're just tuning in, you've got to listen to part 1 because we covered some heavy stuff, origins of both faiths, misconceptions, all that good stuff. Now, we're going to talk about something that gets people really heated, the law, gender, politics, and all that controversial territory. Section 7, Sharia versus Christian ethics. Joe, so Jordan, let's start with this Sharia law. Every time it comes up in the news, people freak out, like they think Muslims are trying to turn Texas into Saudi Arabia. What's the actual deal? Jordan, well, Sharia is a comprehensive legal and moral system rooted in the Quran and Hadith. It's not just punitive measures like cutting off hands, that's what people obsess over. It includes things like contracts, inheritance, marriage laws, and ethical guidelines for daily living. Historically, it provided social cohesion in Islamic societies. Christianity, on the other hand, largely abandoned a legalistic framework in favor of internal moral transformation. Love your neighbor as yourself. So, while Christian countries developed legal codes, they were not considered divine law in the same sense. Joe, so Christianity says be good because Jesus said so, and Islam says here's the law, follow it. Jordan, broadly, yes. Christianity emphasizes conscience and inner transformation, while Islam integrates external law and internal piety. Section 8, gender roles and family structure. Joe, all right, here's where people lose their minds. Gender roles, people say Islam oppresses women. People say Christianity did the same historically. What's the truth? Jordan, both traditions arose in patriarchal societies. So yes, their historical norms reflected that, but in their theological essence, both recognize the dignity of men and women. Christianity frames marriage as a sacrament with mutual love and sacrifice. Islam views marriage as a contract with reciprocal rights and responsibilities. Modern interpretations vary. In some Islamic countries, cultural practices, not the faith itself, restrict women harshly. In others, women are highly educated and influential. The same can be said of Christianity historically. Look at how women were treated in medieval Europe versus modern democracies. Joe, yeah, but here's the thing. People in the West, they look at a woman in a hijab and go, oh, she's oppressed. Meanwhile, that same woman might look at OnlyFans and go, that's oppression. Both laugh. Jordan, exactly. There are competing visions of what liberation means. One emphasizes modesty and family stability. The other emphasizes autonomy and self-expression. Both have trade-offs. Section 9, religion and politics. A dangerous mix. Joe, okay, here's another big one. Politics. The U.S. has separation of church and state, but Christianity still shaped the culture. Islam historically had more integration of religion and politics. Why? Jordan, because Islam emerged as a comprehensive societal system from the start. Muhammad wasn't just a spiritual leader, he was a political leader. So the faith incorporated governance. Christianity, by contrast, started as a persecuted minority movement under Roman rule, so it developed a distinction between spiritual and temporal authority. That difference persists. In some Islamic countries, religious and political authority remain few. In the West, they're mostly separate, though not entirely, as our laws still reflect Christian moral assumptions. Joe, yeah, like how Sunday is still kind of a day off because of Christianity. Even atheists benefit from that. Section 10, science, reason, and faith. Joe, alright, people always bring up this idea that religion holds back science. Like we'd have flying cars if it weren't for religion. But historically that's not true, right? Jordan, not at all. Both Islamic and Christian civilizations advanced science. The Islamic Golden Age preserved and expanded Greek philosophy, algebra, and medicine. Western science flourished in a Christian context. The assumption that nature is orderly, something you can study, was rooted in theological beliefs about a rational creator. Joe, yeah, but now people act like you've got to pick science or God. Jordan, that's an unnecessary conflict. Science tells you what is. Religion tells you why it matters and how you should act. They answer different questions. Joe, and if you've ever done enough psychedelics, you realize both sides are missing something. There's stuff science can't measure, and religion tries to explain it with stories. Both lack. Section 11, masculinity and femininity. A modern crisis. Joe, let's talk about masculinity. People say Islam is too strict, Christianity is too soft now. What's happening? Jordan, well, both traditions historically provided a framework for masculinity responsibility, protection, provision. Today, in the absence of those frameworks, young men are lost. They're either nihilistic or drawn to extreme ideology. Islam offers clear roles and duties: pray, provide, protect. Christianity traditionally did the same, but as Western culture secularized, those structures weakened. That vacuum is dangerous because chaos rushes in where order collapses. Joe, yeah, that's why guys like Andrew Tate blow up. They're offering structure in a world where men feel useless. Jordan, precisely. And both Islam and Christianity in their healthiest forms offer meaning and responsibility, which is what young men desperately need. Section 12, coexistence and universal values. Joe, alright, final question. Can these two religions coexist, or are we doomed to clash forever? Jordan, they can and they must. Both traditions share profound commonalities: belief in one God, moral accountability, care for the poor, emphasis on family. The conflicts arise when ideological rigidity sets in, or when geopolitical interests exploit religion for power. Dialogue, mutual respect, and understanding are essential. The alternative is catastrophic. Joe, yeah, and here's the thing. When I talk to actual Muslims and Christians, most of them just want to live a good life, raise their kids, and not be blown up. It's the extremists and the media that keep us divided. Jordan, exactly. Human beings can unite around shared values if we prioritize truth and humility over pride and dominance. Joe Rogan, closing thoughts. Man, this was deep. If you've listened this far, congratulations, you've unlocked a level of podcasting most people will never reach. My advice? Read. Talk to people who believe differently. Don't just sit there scrolling through Twitter thinking you've figured out life. Because if there's one thing I've learned from these conversations, it's that the world is way more complex than your meme feed makes it look.